breaking! The college football playoff selection committee rankings finally make sense, and we have our four in. We'll talk about those four teams that are going to the college football playoff semifinals, and we're going to get into just what news there has been coming out of this, starting with, Ohio State, Michigan. Let's go! It's the #1 college football show. What's up, kidfolk? It's RJ Young. I am not on a step mill. Thank you for watching on the Fox Sports app, YouTube, or listening wherever you get your podcast. I am in Indianapolis, where I saw one of the two best teams in college football stamp their 13-0 season, looking ahead to the college football playoff, waiting like you for hours to see what the field was. And let's start with #1, which was a no-brainer, right? Georgia. Georgia stopped the mud hole in LSU and walked it dry, 50-30. Outstanding performance from Stetson Bennett, and that running game had over 250 yards on the ground. The defense is stout. Jalen Carter is a dude. The question is, can any of these three teams we're going to talk about challenge the Georgia Bulldogs for a national championship? And my goodness, I got takes on that. At #2, Michigan. Undefeated, had beaten Ohio State on the road in Columbus for what I believe is the best win of the year. They felt like Georgia. They were going to get in regardless of the outcome of their respective conference championship game. And then it got a little bit spicy. Who was going to be at #3 was the question we had. I thought it was going to be Ohio State. The College Football Playoff Selection Committee said, no, we think it's TCU. And what a win for the Horned Frogs down there in Fort Worth, who are making their first trip to the college football playoff in school history after a fantastic season, going 12-0 in the regular season for the second time since 2010, and then just falling short in overtime to Kansas State in the Big 12 championship game. But we saw what we needed to see from the TCU Horned Frogs, and frankly, from Max Duggan, who was crying after the game, really put his heart out there and showed what we know about that TCU team. They have guts. And frankly, they are the reason we have the suits in a boardroom making these college football playoff selection committee rankings. I'm going to tip my hat to them on this. They know how this went down in 2014 for TCU and Baylor, quite honestly, when they were staring at Ohio State, Texas Christian, and Baylor for that 4 spot. Turned out Ohio State stomps a mud hole in Wisconsin and walks it dry. They get the pick for the 4 spot. They ride that all the way to their last national championship. TCU believed then, and does now, that if you'd have put them in that 4 spot, that they would have had the same opportunity and gone and won a national championship. Now, in the #3 spot, they have a chance. They're going to play the Big Ten champion Michigan Wolverines, who have been outstanding on the ground and in rush defense. They were able to beat up on a plucky Purdue team without their star tailback in Blake Corum and without some guys that they are used to having on the inside and the interior, including Mike Morris, who was outstanding all the way up through this Ohio State game, where they really did charge to that #2 spot and make us believe they are one of the 4 best teams in college football. And then at #4, the Ohio State Buckeyes sneak in on a USC loss. Doesn't matter to them how they got in. It only mattered that they did get in. So looking at these top 4, what do we know? We know that for the first time in college football playoff era, we have Ohio State and Michigan in the same playoff, not unlike 2017 or even 2021, when we had Alabama and Georgia representing the SEC in the same college football playoff. The selection committee has really telegraphed for the entire way. We don't really care if you've not won your division. We don't really care if you haven't won your conference championship. Our job is to put the 4 best teams into the college football playoff, and I think they got this right. So I also want to talk a bit about what these games are going to be like and who I'm still picking to win the national championship. Let's go to who got left out, okay? At #5, it's got to be Alabama, it must be said. Now, I have been very vocal about what the hell is Alabama even doing in this conversation. It's not just that they have 2 losses and a 2-loss team has never made the college football playoff. It's who they lost to. So they lost to Tennessee, which many people believed is a very good football team when they had Hendon Hooker, and began these rankings ranked number 1 when they first came out. But they also lost to LSU. And LSU made that loss even worse when they lost to Texas A&M, who's 5-7 just last week, and then got a 50-burger dropped on their skull in the SEC championship. And I've got Nick Saban caping for a team that finished out the season with wins against Ole Miss, Austin Peay, and Auburn. Austin Peay is an FCS team. We don't like that in November. We also know Auburn was in transition. They still didn't have a head coach. And we don't really think that Ole Miss is the caliber of team that could challenge for a college football playoff spot. Then you have to take into account, what did they do when they were completely healthy and against whom? They squeaked by A&M and they squeaked by Texas. It's not one of Nick Saban's best teams, but it is a 10-win team. And I honestly respect him wanting to stand up for his guys and giving them an opportunity to get into this playoff, which I know he thinks he's doing the right thing there, but we didn't need to see Alabama in this playoff any more than we need to see Clemson in this playoff. And then at number 6, I feel terrible for Tennessee because it felt like they are South Carolina win away from being in that 4th spot that is occupied by Ohio State. If they had not lost to South Carolina State, or to South Carolina, not South Carolina State, in the way that they had, we're probably talking about Tennessee being in the spot. And frankly, if Hendon Hooker had led them from behind down 18 before he had his season-ending injury, we probably take that win and we say great things about what Tennessee can do with their back against the wall, like we have against Texas Christian, who has made it their job to play from behind, right? And as we get through these top 25s coming into the coming days, we'll talk more about them. But I want to get right into these CFP semifinal matchups, which are tasty. So, Peach Bowl, number 1 Georgia versus number 4 Ohio State. I'm just going to go ahead and say it. I think Ohio State can win that football game. I think LSU showed what Ohio State must do to try to contend with Georgia. And they're already good at that. Throw the ball down the field. Make sure you get the ball into Marvin Harrison Jr.'s hands. Take advantage of Emeka Egbuka. Take advantage of Julian Fleming. And now you have time to get healthy. That is the most important part for Ohio State. We have not seen a fully healthy Ohio State since week 1. What if they get Jackson Smith and Jigba back for this game and you got him matched up one-on-one with Keely Ringo? You're going to take that. You take that with Marvin Harrison Jr. right now. You take that with Emeka Egbuka right now. What if they have a healthy Travion Henderson and a healthy Mayan Williams? And now they know they can trust Dallin Hayden, This is outstanding. This is great. You're looking at a team that is fiery. And as Ryan Day has said throughout the week, it's a new lease on life. We have a second opportunity to not just redeem ourselves, but to possibly get to the national championship to beat the one team in the world that Ohio State wants to beat every single time they line up and play. So you could put down that John Cooper narrative. And I might feel some kind of way about that because John Cooper was at Tulsa before he was at Ohio State. But Ryan Day has been nothing but outstanding at Ohio State. And frankly, the only thing that is missing from his resume there is winning a national championship. You're 2 games from that. You just got to go over the top of the juggernaut that is the Georgia Bulldogs. And frankly, if they are able to beat Georgia, they would show up as the favorite because that's simply not something anybody else has been able to do. Now, it's going to be about Jim Knowles trying to put together a defense that can contain that Georgia running attack and really try to push back that great Joe Moore Award, I think, winning offensive line. I really think Georgia's got the best offensive line in football. And I know that Michigan's doing what they're doing. But I watched those guys have 3 different tailbacks back there, and it doesn't matter who's got the ball. They're going to find open lanes for those guys to run through, and you got to be able to stop those gaps. You got to have Tommy Eichenberg coming downhill. You got to have Tanner McAllister coming downhill. You got to have Ronnie Hickman wrapping up people in space. You're going to have Zach Harrison and JT Tuimoloau playing their best football. Mike Hall Jr.'s got to show up for you. Teron Vincent's got to show up for you. You have to have a game of games defensively to give the offense an opportunity here, because if you start slow, it could be downhill by the time you get into the 3rd, 4th quarter. Because one of the things that I have been really fascinated with these teams that have been playing outstanding football, Michigan and Georgia, is that they are able to lean on you in the second half, unlike any other football team in the entire country, because they trust their offensive line so much and they trust their tailback so much. They will continue to be patient and hand the ball to the tailback and say, hey, we're just going to say that it is hard for you to get pounded on down after down after down and us not take your will to fight back. And that's exactly what Michigan has done and what Georgia has done. And Ohio State's going to either have to get out in front in a hurry, or they're going to have to establish their own rush attack and get outstanding defense to win this game. The line I'm looking at right now is 6.5 to start. I expect that to close because there's a lot of Buckeye fans that wanted this matchup and feel like they have a great chance to unseat the defending national champion Georgia Bulldogs. Number 2, we have the Fiesta Bowl, right? Michigan versus number 3. That's, I think, the dunker spot for TCU, because as much as I am happy for Texas Christian getting into the college football playoff, I'm looking at them and I'm going, if you are behind against this team, I don't think you're going to be able to Max Duggan your way into a win. I don't know that you're going to be able to just chuck it downfield. I watched Will Johnson have 2 interceptions in one half of football. I watched Charlie Jones go off. I watched Aiden Connell go off. It didn't seem to matter because they are not going to let you get into the end zone. And if you do what you did against Kansas State and you're on a 3rd and goal, 4th and goal, and you don't want to hand it to Max Duggan, I'm going to question what Sonny Dykes is really thinking about there, because that is the heart and soul of your team. It really is about getting those matchups, though, for them to go. So as much as we don't talk about it, TCU's got the best wide receiver core that we just don't mention. I know everybody is up on Quentin Johnston, and they should be. 6'4", can high jump 6'7", might be the 2nd best wide receiver available in the upcoming NFL draft. But they lose Savion Williams. They lose Darius Davis. They lose my favorite in Tay Barber, who reminds me so much of Brandon Cooks. And when that offense is humming right along and Garrett Riley has it going, they're going to find those guys deep. They're going to hand the ball to Kendre Miller. They're going to hand the ball to DeMarcado, and they're going to try to score quickly and in bunches. Very, very excited to see Sharon Moore on the other side of Garrett Riley. Very excited to see Jesse Minter on the other side of Joe Gillespie. It's going to be a fun Fiesta Bowl. One note to get back to that Peach Bowl real quick is somehow Georgia keeps getting these home games that matter, right? Because that's a game in Atlanta. Athens is about an hour away, all right? We saw what happened the last time they had a game in Atlanta earlier this year. They stopped a mud hole in Oregon and walked it dry, set the tone for the rest of the season. That is going to be difficult for Ohio State to overcome, but I expect Ohio State fans to show up en masse and to try to make themselves heard. Maybe we'll talk about what the fans might be able to do or might not be able to do, frankly, to give their team an edge in this. But I'm very excited about these college football playoff semifinals, and we'll talk more about those on the #1 college football show. We have our New Year's 6 set, and I'm excited about these as well, man. Look, the Rose Bowl. It's going to feature Pac-12 champion Utah versus a Penn State team that's got 2 losses, but their 2 losses are to teams playing in the college football playoff, all right? They have a loss to Michigan at Michigan, and they got a loss to Ohio State in Happy Valley. However, they have one of the great freshmen in all of football. Nick Singleton has been outstanding for them. Katron Allen has been outstanding for them. And now you know what you're up against. I wonder now just whether or not Penn State is going to be able to battle in the trenches, though, against Morgan Scalley and that Utah Utes defense. They come downhill. They hit hard. They like playing physical football. As a matter of fact, Utah is the closest thing to a Big Ten team on the West Coast. That's just how Kyle Whittingham wants to get down. And quiet as it's kept, Cam Rising was hurt last year in that game against Ohio State. If he is healthy, we have our reservations about whether or not Ohio State pulls out that win. I expect him to be healthy and finish this game against Penn State. Can't wait to see what that looks like for Utah, because, my goodness, what a way to stamp your season with a Rose Bowl win against the 3rd best team in the Big Ten, especially as you just beat a team that's going to join the Big Ten in USC just a couple of nights ago. Very excited about that. The Cotton Bowl is going to feature Tulane versus USC. Tulane Green Wave have had their best season since 1998. They won a conference championship against UCF just on Saturday. They are loaded up to go at a USC team that really is trying to lick its wounds. Maybe Caleb Williams will be healthy for this. We'll have to wait and see. But I have my reservations about whether or not guys like Jordan Addison will play. I want to know whether or not these guys that are draft eligible think that playing in the Cotton Bowl is a very big deal. I'm from Oklahoma. Playing in the Cotton Bowl is a tremendously big deal. So I would like to think that they'll show up. But if they don't, leave it to Willie Fritz and the Wave to show USC what the Beach really do. Because that team from New Orleans has just been popping off. Remember, they knocked off the Big 12 champions in Kansas State earlier this year, and they've had a dramatic turnaround. They go from 2-10 last year to double-digit wins this year, making a New Year's Six Bowl appearance. USC is looking for win number 12 in a New Year's Six Bowl game. That's outstanding in Lincoln Riley's first year. I expect them to only get better. He would be right to say this might be the worst class that I have, and they won 11 games and played in the Pac-12 championship in his first year. This is also an opportunity for them to throw down a marker going into 2023. Very excited to see these two teams clash. And then in the Orange Bowl, we got the battle of the Orange. Clemson versus Tennessee. My goodness. All right. So Clemson to me looked dead in the water. And then they show up to UNC and they beat them in the ACC championship 39-10. Cade Klubnik has a game of games, goes for over 300 yards, right? Basically forces the issue with DJ Uiagalelei. And I got to say, it's got to be Cade Klubnik's team now. We're going to get to see what that looks like against Tennessee. And frankly, one of the tooliest and most athletic and talented players in all the sport, Joe Milton, I hope is going to play in this game because that's exciting to me. That's an outstanding dude that has an opportunity to show the NFL, hey, man, I got Josh Allen type of talent, too. I can throw a football over them mountains. People have a hard time tackling me and bringing me down. And for him to do it against a Wes Goodwin defense would only be so cool to watch. Now, Tennessee is also in transition, right? Offensive coordinator Alex Galesh has become the new head coach at South Florida. I expect that he would love to coach in this game, but I wonder, with these transitions going on, how does that affect you in Knoxville, right? Having guys that also want to play in the NFL, how does that affect you in Knoxville against a Clemson team that really is loaded up to try and go win this game and remind folks that, yeah, we might have had a down year, but a down year for us is double-digit wins, all right? Tennessee also is trying to finish its best season, I believe, since 1997. Just outstanding stuff for them. Very excited for what Josh Heupel can do going forward and what the setup for the Volunteers might be in 2023. A win in the Orange Bowl against the class of the ACC would be wondrous. And their sixth-ranked win in an outstanding season 2022. The Sugar Bowl will feature Big 12 champion Kansas State versus Alabama. All right, so the last time that I saw Alabama playing in a Sugar Bowl that they didn't really want to play in was against an Oklahoma team led by Trevor Knight that they were supposed to stomp on. No. Trevor Knight, Sterling Shepard went to work on Alabama as Alabama showed up going, I don't know that we really want to play in this game, and it showed. It's still a Sugar Bowl. You still got to want it. Is Bryce Young going to play in the Sugar Bowl? That's a very good question to ask. And if he doesn't, and you have to go with my man Jalen Milroe, I love him to death, but he has to grow up in a hurry if you want to beat a sound, disciplined Kansas State team. And the way that Will Howard has been playing of late, I just am so floored by that guy's come up, right? He went from a dude that I didn't trust to throw the football to a wide open barn door to becoming one of the better quarterbacks, not just in the Big 12, but in the sport itself. I have my reservations about Deuce Vaughn and what he may or may not do in this game, but knowing what I know about Deuce, I'd be shocked if he doesn't want to play in the Sugar Bowl and try to finish this outstanding season for the Wildcats. Also, shouts to Colin Klein, who gets to coach in the Sugar Bowl against a Bill O'Brien, against a Nick Saban, after having been head coach at quarterback at Kansas State just 10 years ago, the last time that they had an outstanding Big 12 championship and were playing in a New Year's Six Bowl game. We're going to find out a bunch about who wants to play the sport of college football and who wants to, go get paid in the NFL, which is great, and I'm all for that. But bowl season now, especially as we're getting into New Year's Six Bowl, are about your pride. They're about my pride. They're about fan pride. we're going to take these wins with us into the offseason, and that's why they matter so much, apart from what the college football playoff is going to do. So did the committee get it right? I think at the top 4, top 5, top 6, absolutely, right? I've been dunking on them all year. I did not believe that they would entertain Alabama as a number 14, and apparently it did not even come up. As soon as USC took a loss to Utah in the Pac-12 championship, they saw what we saw, which is, okay, Ohio State has shown us enough that we believe it's one of the 4 best teams in college football, and they weren't even talking about avoiding an Ohio State-Michigan game in the playoff semifinals, according to Boo Corrigan, which I thought was outstanding, because that also means they had already vaulted Texas Christian to 3, or I should say they left them at 3, no matter what they did against Kansas State, which is the talk going up to the Big 12 championship game. But I don't like talking about college football and or Big 12 title games, Big 10 title games, conference title games as if they don't matter, because my goodness, I would hang the banner, and I'd love to. And if you're a TCU Horned Frog, all 5 of you, I am so excited for you to be able to have that experience. Now, what games am I most excited for? My goodness, I've been wanting Ohio State, Georgia for, it feels like 4 years now. Now, I have some history myself with Georgia, right? I watched Lincoln Riley in Oklahoma try their best to unseat that team in a playoff and maybe be the team that could beat Alabama for a national championship. Didn't go that way for us, right? However, I've been on Ohio State from the moment go this season. I believe that they could win a national championship and they could still make me right. I saw a team that when it is humming right along is extremely difficult to stop. And what they have going for them is when they do find their rhythm, they score in a hurry. It doesn't take a lot. They might just need 1 or 2 sparks from their defense. Maybe it's a JT Tuimoloau who gets his hand on a pass that begins this avalanche. Maybe it's a Travion Henderson that can hit a home run against a no-name Georgia defense. Maybe it's a Marvin Harrison Jr. that is going to show us all why he is a Blitnikoff Award finalist. I really like this game, but I love watching Kirby Smart coach a defense, man. He is rowdy, and he wants to get after it. That defense is so much fun to watch. I'm going to be interested to see what, if anything, that Ohio State offensive line can do with a guy like Jalen Carter, who might be a better defensive lineman than Jordan Davis. And that is saying quite a bit. But let's hope that he is healthy, ready to go for that game. Everybody's getting a heel up here. Extremely excited for Texas Christian and Michigan because I want to see what TCU does now that it feels like we're the only people that expect them to be playing with house money, but they're going to show up looking to win a national championship. Do you think, or do I think, we're headed for a rematch of Ohio State versus Michigan in the national championship? Yes, I do. And I would love nothing more than to see the teams that hate each other the most playing for a national championship and absolute bragging rights, especially knowing Michigan is going to show up there having won the last 2 Big Ten championship games, right? And having beaten Ohio State twice. The last time that they lost to Ohio State, my goodness, we had not seen a thing called, what, the pandemic? Like, that's ridiculous when you think about it. But we didn't get that game in 2020. And since then, Michigan has lorded over the Big Ten. But what if Ohio State gets to show up and say, okay, cool, you've won the Big Ten the last couple of years, but who's got the national championship? I'm here for it. I would love this. I know what it means to Michigan to be in the spot. I know what it means for Ohio State to be in the spot. And I know that you, dear neutral, are going to be looking at these games going, yeah, okay, I'm here for this because that person over there can't stand that person over there. And that person over there can't stand that person over there. It's going to be a lot of fun. Let's see if we can get there, though, because it's still Georgia and it's still a college football playoff for Michigan. Okay, we're going to do a coaching carousel show. We're going to do a transfer portal show. We're going to have lots of goodies for you as we go into the postseason. Be sure to check out Fox Sports, where my buddy Michael Cohen has written about the Pac-12 championship and the Big Ten championship. I wrote about Deion Sanders. I also wrote about my top 25, and I will be writing as we go about every single bowl game that is being played. You can find that all on Fox Sports. My goodness, I'm so grateful to be in this spot, and I'm so grateful to be working with the crew that puts on the #1 college football show. The work that they put in just to get this show out to you is monumental and means the world to me. I hope it means the world to you. Okay, our lead producer is Tyler Wojak. Our senior producer is Catherine Donnelly. Our director of photography is Ava Ye. That is Chaz Boulay directing us tonight. Gabe Gross-Sable brings us to live. Social media maven is Javion Duncan. I'm the host, RJ. We will see y'all in a couple of days. Deuces.